Let's talk perimenopause. And you're claiming that it is our, this is my term, superpower?
I think it is. And yes, menopause can be, or perimenopause transition can be uncomfortable, but it's about connecting to your body in a whole new way. By 2030, the world population of menopausal women is projected to increase to 1.2 billion, with 47 million entrants every year. This just highlights that we need a pivotal sociocultural shift in research and treatment. And I truly believe that menopause, perimenopause is a breakthrough and not a breakdown when given the right support, when given the right tools.
Okay, well, welcome to the Michelle Chalfant Show. Margot Witteveen, it is, gosh, so good to have you here. We need you.
Thank you. I need myself. I'm in the same boat.
I don't believe you, but you tell me that you are. So, you look darn good.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have you on the show today talking about all things hormones, perimenopause, menopause, all the things. So it definitely is going to be a show geared for women, but I also think that the men that are listening, you're going to understand your women even better by listening in today. So stay on and listen. You guys need to understand, because I know men don't even understand when we have a period what happens as far as our moods go. Let's talk perimenopause, because that's as early as 35, is it? And a lot is going on with us. And you're claiming that it is our, this is my term, superpower?
I think it is.
Okay. I'm going to give you the floor. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, I first of all want to thank you for having me. This is an honor. I'm excited to be on your show. And I also want to congratulate and thank your community for coming, for those that are here, currently, and the ones that are going to come later, because we've really been left in the dark as far as just understanding how our bodies work. I think, whenever we see our clients, I always ask, okay, what do you know about hormones? Are you going back to that, middle school class, that health class that all we learned about was our period and that was it, or do you have a little bit more knowledge? So we have a lot to learn, and we're still learning. And as I will get more into the talk, you'll understand about how we don't have a lot of research on women, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is. But I do want you to come to this session open-minded. I want you to learn things about your body, but I also want you to maybe unlearn some things about your body. So it's a little bit of unlearning some dogma and some very things that we've thought for a long time were true about the female physiology, and we're finding that that's not true as well. And so I just want to share with you a statistic. By 2030, the world population of menopausal women is projected to increase to 1.2 billion, with 47 million entrants every year. Wow. So you are in good company. But more importantly, this just highlights that we need a pivotal sociocultural shift in research and treatment. And I truly believe that menopause, perimenopause is a breakthrough and not a breakdown when given the right support, when given the right tools. And you may be reflecting on how your mother went through it, your grandmother, maybe you have an older sister, your aunt. And it really was, in those times, it was more talked about and shrouded, and we were silenced in the corner, and you didn't really want to talk about it, or maybe it was just said the change. Or a lot of our clients, when we ask about, can you reflect about how your mother went through menopause, so we can maybe gather some data about potentially what you're going to go through, and they're like, I don't know, she doesn't remember, she doesn't talk about it, or she had a hysterectomy. I hear that all the time. And so we don't have a lot of data on this. And I think it's finally, we're starting to talk about it. We're starting to say, we need help. We need to understand this. But this is actually a powerful transition. And our hope is that we can provide and help and give you and empower you to understand that society is not tossing you aside. If anything, you're coming into your power. So yes, absolutely, I feel like you're coming into your power. Now, let's kind of we're going to start getting it a little bit in the nuts and bolts of what is happening in your body and then what you can do about that. But I do want to say that, because Western medicine has allowed us to age well, beyond when our ovaries stop working, which is around age 51. So that would be the mark of menopause. When you've gone 12 months without a cycle, that's officially menopause. And the average age here in the US is 51. It's funny, in other countries, it's actually a little bit younger, but here in the US, the average age is around 51 years of
Hmm.
age. And so by your menopausal years, your ovaries stop producing hormones at optimal levels. And so we may be living well beyond that. So think about it. You could live a third of your life in those post-menopausal years. And for unfortunately a lot of women, those can be riddled with, chronic disease, frailty, not feeling well, and we don't want that. There's no reason for
Right.
that. So we can absolutely age well even when our hormones stop when our producing hormones at our optimal levels. And then we'll talk about what does that look like here in a second. But I want to kind of take a step back. So what's happening in those premenopausal years is we're having this ebb and flow that happens every month with our sex hormones. So when I'm talking about hormones, I'm specifically talking about sex hormones. So we're talking about estrogen or estradiol, we're talking about progesterone and testosterone.
Mhm.
Testosterone, we do not want to ignore testosterone. These support our brain, they support our bodies, and they support our energy. And it's really important to know that these sex hormones are not just for making babies. They're for doing so many other things in our bodies. They're for our mood. They're to help us sleep better. They help keep us calm. They keep our bones strong. They protect us cardiovascularly. So they keep our skin, all these things, hair growth. So we tend to think when we talk about hormones or sex hormones, we're just thinking, okay, baby making, but no. It's a lot more than that, which is why women start to have these things of, I'm not feeling like myself, but I'm still having a cycle. I don't understand what's going on. So I want
Mhm.
to, this menopause transition can feel a little bit like stepping into the unknown. You might think you don't have control of your body, you have no one to help with, maybe you're talking about it with your girlfriends, you may be asking, where was this vibrant version of myself? Why don't my clothes fit me anymore like they used to? That's a big one. And yes, menopause can be, or perimenopause transition can be uncomfortable, but it's about connecting to your body in a whole new way. And these symptoms of menopause are signals that your body needs support. And it's important to think about what that is. What is that?
Mhm.
So let's start by understanding this transition and how you can support yourself. So somewhere in your mid to late 30s, you're going to have a decline in your progesterone. And progesterone is what's responsible for keeping us calm. It helps us sleep at night. We tend to handle stress a little bit better. It also supports your thyroid. That is one of the first signs of that decline in progesterone. And honestly, when I look back, I do think I was having perimenopausal symptoms. I'm 46 right now, but when I look back around 37 is when I started to notice a little bit of that creeping in, not sleeping as well and having an increase in anxiety. And of course,
Mm.
that is such an easy thing for any of us to excuse. I mean,
Oh,
you could be having kids, you could be, launching your career. There's a million things happening there.
I don't think until honestly the last 2 years, nobody talked about perimenopause or menopause, at least in my world. And it certainly
Mhm,
wasn't out in social media and talked about it like it is now. But I
mhm.
remember in my 30s, I would guess everything you just said, as far as the symptoms go, would be it's the stress, like you said, from kids. We
Yeah.
either have toddlers or we have middle schoolers or older, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
I never, and I look back, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I was. I don't know. I don't exactly remember, but I remember having
Mhm.
kids and I was working. I had moved to another state. I was starting a
Mhm.
practice. So I had a lot going on. I never would have dreamed that any of that, stress or anxiety was due to perimenopause, but I'm sure it was.
Yeah, it probably was. I think that we need to start screening women when they turn
Yeah.
35. I think that should just be standard of care
What
because
kind of screening? Like, what do we do if we're 35? How do we?
I think it's important to just ask that question,
Mhm.
whether it's coming from your primary care physician, your OBGYN or gynecologist,
Right.
start saying, hey, you know what? Your baseline might start changing here. Are you
But
noticing this? And it
but
may
what's
not be hormonal level, is what I'm
What
saying.
what's the screen though? Like, is it, the Dutch test? Like, what do you,
Oh, I see what you're
if I'm
saying.
35
Yeah.
and I'm living no, I don't know, like pick a country or
Yeah.
a town or state. What
Mhm.
would be, if I'm 35, what's the test that I want to go take? What do I want to go ask my doctor
So
for?
that's a good question about the test. In our perimenopausal years, we don't really like to recommend a test. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't value in it or taking a Dutch test. It's more symptomatic. That is really the way to go, because what could happen is you could take the Dutch test, for example, or you can do a blood test, either one. And 1 month you may show you're in pre-menopausal, so you're just in that before the peri years. And then
Mhm.
1 month may show the opposite, because this is that chaos that we're dealing with. So that's why it's
Got it.
better to go by symptoms and look at trends and really start to connect with your body. But but like you're saying, what if someone said, hey, wait a minute, you're noticing an increase in anxiety and you're not sleeping well and other things are happening, maybe thyroid is getting a little bit more sluggish. That might not just be lifestyle. That could actually be a sign of early perimenopause. And it's important for a woman to have that knowledge, because then that gives them power, that drives that intervention. It
Yep.
helps them understand, oh, okay, this is what I'm going through right now. And
Yeah.
that's more what I mean about that screening. Like, hey, have you noticed that this is changing? Now, of course, a woman could just be having anxiety and depression and other things because of things happening that are not due. But I just don't want that lost. So that's why I think at that those mid 30s, we need to start looking a little bit deeper and saying, okay, let's make sure that is it progesterone that we're losing, because you can still have a cycle and not ovulate and not make that and not make that progesterone. So that's important to know. Like, a lot of women think, well, I'm still cycling. It's like, no, you can still have these hormone levels that are changing for sure.
So important to consider that because again, when I was in my 30s, like no doctor said to me in my 30s or 40s, if I had anxiety or whatever I was dealing with, well, let's check your hormones. That just wasn't even on
Absolutely.
their radar. And I'm glad that it's on more people's radars now, or more doctors,
Mhm.
but it's not everywhere. So I'm glad to have you on today. So
Mhm.
if you are a woman that's 35 to 51, just
Mhm.
consider that it could be hormonal. You're not
Mhm.
crazy, all the
No.
symptoms, we think like something's wrong with me. Yes, it's our hormones. We have to become our best advocate. So go ahead.
Oh gosh, don't we ever? Oh my
Yeah, we
gosh.
do. And stop putting our power out there. Not to say we shouldn't listen to
Mhm.
doctors and nurses and everybody,
Mhm.
but tune into your body. Like when something's off. You've
Mhm.
got to figure out and get to the root of it. So, okay.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So that is sort of that early sign. It's that decline in progesterone. And then in your late 30s to maybe early 40s, you're going to start experiencing estrogen and progesterone imbalances. And even testosterone may start to decline at this point. So you want to think of your ovaries during this time period as functioning like a spotty Wi-Fi. That's like one of my favorite examples. It's like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And you're just trying to figure out like what's going on, because again, I think sometimes these symptoms are more neurological more versus the physical yet. The hot flashes is
Yeah.
what we tend to think of. So this is a really good time. I really like, especially when anybody turns 40 or you're approaching even early 40s, and of course it's never too late, but it's a good time to get your labs checked and start monitoring trends. So that's what I was
Yeah.
talking about earlier. That is when those trends, let's see how we're trending. Are we trending downward? Where are we trending? Get that thyroid looked at. Let's start looking at inflammation, start looking at blood sugar and lipid panels. This is when those things, those under, what I call like beneath the surface symptoms may start changing. And again, you may think, why is my cholesterol slightly going up, or why are my levels of inflammation going up? I've done nothing different. I haven't changed. It's the hormones.
Yes, it
So
is. Yes, it is.
and if you are
Yeah.
open to hormone replacement therapy, this might be a good time to consider adding in progesterone. And this can be done orally and through the skin. And that I would absolutely encourage you to work with a qualified provider on that. And then in your mid to late 40s, progesterone continues its downward descent and estrogen is fluctuating wildly. And this is what makes that transition so chaotic and at times, unfortunately, unbearable. And that's where I really want you to start using, this is where we start doing, in our practice, we'll use a combination of natural remedies. And if you haven't already, start exploring and interviewing doctors to initiate hormone replacement therapy, because
Mhm.
that takes a while to find. And again,
Yeah.
this is a very personal choice. So I will talk about HRT. I'm not here to say you have to be on it or not on it, but I do want to have it part of the conversation because it is very much a personal choice. You have to understand what you're doing, but you also have to find the right provider, because just because a doctor can prescribe HRT does not mean that they know the nuances of HRT. And I think that's also very important to know.
So important. Yes, because I have had exposure to both doctors, or had,
Mhm.
one doctor was like, "Oh yes, go on this." It was like max dose hormones. I should
Oh,
not
wow.
have been on that high. And then another one was on take
Mm.
these drops of pregnenolone and progesterone. I'm like, they did nothing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you've got to find the right practitioner. So just keep searching and you will
Hmm.
find that right person. And they may not be local to you, but they're out there.
Hmm.
They're out
Oh,
there. They're
absolutely.
out
They're
there.
out there.
More
Definitely.
and more and more now. Thank God they're out
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Yes. And we walk our clients through sort of like, these are questions to ask and these are red flags. And these could even be from your doctor, your wonderful OBGYN that delivered your babies may not know what to do with you. Because sometimes what I find is if you aren't trying to get pregnant and you don't have cancer, they don't know what to do with you.
And to their defense, they are not
Hmm.
trained in hormones. And I talked to my OB about this. She goes, "I am so sorry I led you down the wrong path." She goes, I wasn't trained
They
in
are
any of
not.
this.
I
In
know
any
it.
of this." She goes,
No, they're
"I'm
not.
learning it now." She's actually under Mary Claire Haver. She goes,
Oh,
"I love Mary
love
Claire Haver." She's
her.
like, "I'm under Dr. Mary Claire." And I'm like, "Oh, God bless. Like, here we go. Like, now we're going to get
Yes.
someplace." So she
Yes.
goes,
Oh, that's
because I've asked her for
wonderful.
years and she's like, "No, we don't do that. You can go on the pill." I'm like, "I don't want to be
What?
on the pill. Why do I need to be on the pill?"
I
But
know.
now she's all about it. So anyway,
Yeah. Oh,
go
I
ahead.
love that. I love to hear that.
But keep asking, keep
So yeah,
finding,
keep
keep searching.
asking. Do not stop. Do not stop. So this would be that time to start really bringing in discussing that HRT journey. What does that look like for you? I personally have started with progesterone. I'm probably about to bring on estrogen or estradiol here very soon. And so, and it is a moving target. So it's not like a crock pot, you set it and forget it. Like you were just saying, Michelle, like, one dose may not work for you. You do have to test and see how you feel and go by your symptoms. It will take a little bit of time before you can get to that point. And so it is a journey. It's definitely a journey.
It is.
And so then in your early 50s, like I said earlier, 51 years is marks that time of menopause. That's the average age that a woman goes through menopause here in the US. And that is when you will really start to experience some of those systemic effects of hormone deficiency. And if you're not replacing them with HRT, then that's when you're really going to feel it. So I want to talk about the symptoms. I actually have my little list in front of me because I do have brain fog at times and can't remember everything. But symptoms of perimenopause, they're not just hot flashes. And it's really important for you to know this. So I'm going to list them off. Take a deep breath. We're going to get through this. But vaginal dryness, bone and joint pain, low libido, mood changes, cognitive changes like brain fog, tinnitus, weight gain, breast tenderness, hot flashes, hair thinning, insomnia, UTIs, frequent urination, fatigue, feeling less confident. Your cycles may be closer together, further apart, changes in your flow. You could have really light or you could have crime scene flow. Itchy skin, burning tongue, acid reflux. You may have less alcohol tolerance, carb tolerance, and you may have constipation. So there's a lot. So you can see how all of these, you could easily miss these. I mean,
Oh my
there's
God.
so
Yeah, I
many
mean, pick any of
reasons.
those. You may go
I
to your
know.
doctor and be like, "I have this one thing." And
Uh,
again, they're not going to consider, "Oh, this
mhm,
could be
mhm,
perimenopause or the beginning of
mhm.
menopause for you."
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And there is an actual condition, the frozen shoulder. I didn't even mention that one. There is a
Yes.
frozen shoulder. And when a woman has a frozen shoulder, they that is actually the time that they have been without estrogen for a very long time. Once a woman gets to that point, that means
Wow.
we've had an estrogen deficiency for a significant time. So
Yeah.
I will see that a lot. And they have gone to physical therapy, they've done cupping, they've had dry needling, they've had
Mhm.
acupuncture, everything to cure that frozen shoulder when really estrogen is probably what they needed to begin with. But again, nobody is looking at a woman, which especially in that 40s, it's like, let me look at her through a different lens. Let me think
Mhm.
about what's really happening here. Is this a hormone change? So that is something that's really important to know. Now, I do want to say this, not all of you will experience these symptoms.
Right.
Some of you could actually just kind of sail through menopause and not have these symptoms. But that doesn't mean that things aren't changing beneath the surface. So I do want to say that it does not have to be bad, and it doesn't have to be terrible hot flashes and low libido and mood changes, but that also doesn't mean that things aren't changing below the surface, like brain changes, our cognitive changes. Women are twice as likely to develop dementia and Alzheimer's. Of
Yeah.
course, there's the osteoporosis risk, and then women catch up to men post-menopause as far as cardiovascular risk. So we're at a very high stroke risk once those happens because we've lost the hormones that were protecting us.
Mm.
I want to talk just briefly what progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone do in the body. So
Yep.
as I said earlier, that progesterone helps us feel calm, we sleep better, it supports our thyroid, and we have better stress tolerance. And estrogen is also full body. So as I was saying earlier, your bones, joints, brain supports that blood sugar balance. It helps with lubrication. So eyes, vagina, all of it.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
supports our mood and it supports our energy. And testosterone, this is kind of a new kid on the block, if you will, not in terms of course, we've known about testosterone forever, but as far as adding it to the repertoire of HRT,
Yep.
I've had many clients in our practice that have just been doing progesterone and estrogen, and they're like, I'm not there yet. And they add that testosterone and it's like a game changer. So
Mhm.
testosterone helps with that lean muscle mass. It also helps you feel more confident. There's some confidence with that. And of course, it helps with libido and energy. And so it's really important to, again, understand your baseline, know if something is off, and really look inward and say, hey, I don't feel like I used to, and go and explore that and get that support and figure out what can I do. And there is absolutely support out there. Absolutely.
Are you saying that we can feel like we did in our 30s when
I
we're in
think we
our
can get
50s?
80% there.
Wow.
So HRT is not obviously a panacea.
Yeah.
You have to have that foundational work. You have to have that nervous system support. You have to be eating right. You have to add in the right physical activity, but it can absolutely get you that 75 to 80% there. It's never going to be what our ovaries did. It's
Yeah.
just not, you know, and we don't know, there's a lot of hypotheses out there. We don't know why women live well beyond the menopausal years. There's very few mammals that do this. Killer whales are one of the
Interesting.
other mammals that live beyond their reproductive years. And of course we do as well, humans, and we don't really know. So there's some hypotheses called the grandmother hypothesis, which I actually don't like that name, but that's just me. The idea is that we, back in sort of our hunter-gatherer days, is that we were not going to be able to reproduce anymore because we didn't want to compete with our daughters. And so, and then we would take over the child rearing and help take care of the
Mm.
tribe, if you will. And so
Mhm.
there's some of the theories as to why, you know, because really it's more of a matriarchal society. We are there to,
Yeah.
you know, this is that power. We're there to help others, to take care of others, and to really pass on knowledge and all of these other great things that we don't really have that during that transitional time, because we tend to toss women aside once they no longer can reproduce. It's
Right.
awful. And so it's
Right.
really important to think about that. So those are just some of the theories why, okay, well, if this hormone deficiency causes all these things, why are we still alive? Like what is going on? So there's been some research into it, but of course, like all women's health, there's not a lot done. So
No. Nope. It is all around the men.
it is, it definitely is.
Yeah.
So where do you start? So we've talked about, okay, these are the symptoms, this is what's
Mhm.
happening. Maybe you're reflecting on your own journey, or, you know, if you're thinking, okay, this is my age or what's happening to me. So where do I start? So go by symptoms regardless of age. Some
Mhm.
women may not have these symptoms till 45, some may start at 35, some may go
Right.
through full-blown menopause at 48, some may not happen till 53, 54, 55.
Right.
And so go by those symptoms regardless of age. And then you can start your treatment from there. Then you can start saying, okay, this is what I'm experiencing. Where do I go? What do I do? So as Michelle, you and I were saying earlier, if you're ready to start HRT, you need to find that qualified practitioner. And if you haven't
Mhm.
started interviewing doctors, start doing this now. Start
Yeah.
finding, shop around, not only, and Michelle, I love that you said that earlier, because sometimes I forget to say it, is that they may not be local. And you have to keep that in mind, but there are
Yeah.
lots of online options for you. So don't feel, oh, if I don't have access to this doctor or my doctor doesn't prescribe HRT, there is help out there without a doubt. And I do want to touch on this just briefly, and I'll say it briefly because otherwise we'd spend 2 hours talking about hormone replacement therapy does have a tumultuous past, but it is
Hmm.
a flawed study that we're basing our recommendations on by
Yes.
the WHI, the Women's Health Initiative.
Hmm.
And this was published in 2002, and it virtually stopped HRT overnight. And unfortunately, we're still basing recommendations on that study.
Yeah.
And we're just
Yeah.
now turning that ship around, just now turning it around. So if you're scared of it or think it causes cancer, this is based on a study from 2002 that wasn't even looking at these. This is not even what they were looking at. They're using the wrong kind of estrogen. It wasn't even the right sample size. I could go on and on, but unfortunately it deprived a whole generation of women from beneficial HRT. And
Yeah.
also it deprived the medical practitioners to receive the right type of training and information.
Hmm. So true. I heard all about that. I read about that study. It was horrible.
Awful.
I don't know how
And
women went through menopause in the last 20 some years without
I
hormones.
don't know either. Well, and I don't know if you've heard this or seen this study, but when 2002 came out, HRT of course dropped, like everyone
Yeah.
stopped it
Like
overnight,
it was wiped off the shelves overnight.
wiped off.
Yeah.
The increase in SSRIs or antidepressants went up.
I'm sure.
I mean, and just who knows what else, who knows what else. So it's
Crazy.
just, we're done. We're not doing this anymore. We're not being in the
Thank God.
dark. This is done. This is
Yeah.
absolutely done.
There are enough like
Um,
people in Hollywood. I love it. Like Drew Barrymore had like her
oh,
first hot
I
flash,
know,
like when she was on TV, and like
loved it.
Halle Berry's like in Washington, like, what are you
Yes,
gonna do?
yes, she
What is going on? I'm
is.
like,
She is.
it's
Yeah.
just crazy that like because now I'm on
Uh,
progesterone and estrogen as of like a year ago. Like I just started
oh,
this journey. I'm late to the
wow.
game. My mother had no symptoms except for like some weight gain around the middle.
Uh-huh.
I had like 5 hot flashes an hour. It's insane.
And you're
But what
like, no
made me,
way.
yeah, like no. But what still makes me mad is so when I go get my hormones at my
Mm-hmm.
grocery store where the pharmacy is,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I take the progesterone, estrogen, and testosterone. It's
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of like
I
$200 a
know.
month.
I
And I
know.
just had dental surgery a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
I had to get antibiotic, hydrocodone, all the hydrocodone, this giant bottle, which I took one, was $1. I'm like, this is this is backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Like we
Mm-hmm.
need these hormones. Why is this price not coming up?
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other
That is a
conversation.
whole other conversation, and we could
But
talk about
like the
Viagra being
wrong,
like $2 or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
like the wrong things are too
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and the
Mm-hmm.
things that should be expensive that we shouldn't get our hands on, like high doses of hydrocodone, should anyway.
Oh, yes. No,
Anyway, let's not
trust me, I thought
digress.
we
I
could,
was
we could go down that one. And
I
you
was
have to be
so
on this for
mad.
life. And you have to be on this for life. So if you, depending on
Totally.
somebody's financial situation, anyway, yes, we could absolutely talk about that. I'm
This is
with
like
you.
part two because
It
it's and the other
is.
thing which blew my mind, and ladies, if you're not already on hormones, you know, even testosterone. Thank God we have hormones. I'm so blessed because
No,
5 hot flashes an hour to the
that's
point
wild.
where I was like
I,
dripping. Like, what
yeah.
is my mom didn't have this. I was like, oh my God, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
And then again, estrogen just within, a week they were gone.
Oh,
But the
oh.
testosterone that we ladies have to take is
Mm-hmm.
hard to dose
Mm-hmm.
because there isn't one for women, it's just for men. So we're
Mm-hmm.
taking men's progesterone in little itty bitty doses, which we need to just, I'm so glad for this movement. Like
Oh,
women need to rise up so we can really get more of this out there, get the prices to come down, and let's get some testosterone for women. So I don't have to take like little minuscule doses
it's
every day.
crazy.
Like
Yes,
it's
it's
insane.
absolutely crazy. That's
Okay.
the doctor that prescribes my HRT. She's like, when testosterone's ready, this is what you're going to have to do. The UK and Australia are actually ahead of the game with testosterone. But anyway,
Anyway,
so
yeah, we could go way up, but I
we
just
can talk about this.
the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is hormones are available. So ladies,
Mm-hmm.
go find the doc. And I think Dr. Mary Claire Haver's website has like you
Mm-hmm.
can find a doctor in your area wherever you
Mm-hmm.
live. Go to her website And there are doctors in your area that are listed. And I actually found one of them, not my OB, but a different one. And
Mhm.
she's amazing too. So,
Yes, no, you absolutely do not feel that you have nothing around you or available to you. Absolutely use that. And
okay.
menopause.org is also another place to
Yes.
start without a doubt. So what can we do? So we've
Yes.
talked a little bit about HRT. That is absolutely going to require you to partner with a provider. But let's talk about things that you can do on your own to make perimenopause and beyond less chaotic. And again, remember, think you could spend a third of your life and menopause, and I want you to thrive. I want you to feel good. I want you
Yeah.
to do things that you've been wanting to do. I want you to write that book, take that trip, whatever that is for you. And I do
Mhm.
not want this to slow you down. So it's important that we focus on our health, because honestly, this time in our life is a turning point in terms of health. This is really going to sort of be, you have a window, and you want to take, seize the moment, if you will, and
Yeah.
take the time to focus on, because things that may have nagged you in your 20s and 30s are going to become glaring, and it's not going to go away. In fact, it's only going to get worse. So educate yourself on hormonal changes, which is what you're doing here today.
Mhm.
Again, work with that qualified practitioner. Resist the urge to follow wellness dogmas or preset protocols. I really want you to avoid the influencers, really, because this is a very specialized. I've had to seek extra training myself. So this is not something that you can just sort of be like, oh, I know about it. Like,
Yeah.
make sure you know who you're talking to. And then we're
Mhm.
going to bring in that foundational health. So we're going to focus on nourishing our body. We have a lot of our clients that have come to us, and no fault of their own, over exercising and undernourished. And
Yeah.
so we like to flip that script. I always say you have to have slept enough and eaten enough to earn your exercise versus the other way around.
Ooh, that's
We
good.
we like our clients to really be nourishing their bodies, focusing on that protein, focusing on that fiber, because that helps with that estrogen metabolism, especially for taking HRT. So balancing those blood sugars are important. That meal timing and structure is so critical. It helps keep us stable, keeps our mood stable, supports our adrenals, our thyroid. It limits stress on the body, because perimenopause and menopause can be a stressful time on the body, just that alone,
Yeah.
not even speaking about just life. So we want to limit that by just keeping our blood sugars balanced and eating enough. And so let's limit that stress as much as we can. And it also helps improve that body composition, because that body composition does change. And I always think menopause is like it levels the playing field, because I don't care if you were, I mean, we've had athletes in our practice come to us. We've had, distance runners, like all of these things. And it's all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, my body, what I've been doing isn't working anymore. And it's like, it's
Mhm.
because it's your hormones. We have to
Yep.
approach this in a different way.
Totally.
Um,
Totally. Such good
I,
stuff.
yes,
Talk
and I
about
want
the
you,
body shift,
yes,
because
yes,
I know I have friends that are like just sort of experiencing this. What? Why do my pants not fit? What happened?
I
I don't
know,
know.
yes.
I'm so confused. Like everything is things that used to fit me don't fit me right. Like everything's
Mm,
moving around.
mhm.
What happens? Like
Yes.
what's going?
So it's that shift in estrogen. So unfortunately, estrogen, or fortunately, estrogen is what helps. So if we want to talk about it on a metabolic level, estrogen helps support our blood sugar. And we do tend to get a little
Mm,
insulin resistance, and we tend to get a little bit of carb intolerant. This is not to promote a ketogenic diet or a low carb diet. It's just more to understand what's happening on a metabolic level. And that's what we're seeing a lot, is that estrogen, and also that lack of estrogen is making, we're gaining weight more around the waist. And it's again, that low estrogen, and that's what's changing. So you cannot, unfortunately, you could go run 10 miles a day and, eat whatever, 1,500 calories, which again, I do not promote. That's still not going to change your body, because it's that estrogen that is changing, and the
mm,
thyroid is changing. I think the thyroid isn't talked about enough. And so we like to get
mhm.
a full thyroid panel on our clients, because I want to see exactly what's happening with our thyroid, and I want to start tracking it. So these are those changes that are happening. We also aren't sleeping that well. So
Yeah.
then that
Yep.
compounds things. It's the lack of sleep. So it's that estrogen that kind of kept us svelte, if you will, is
Yeah.
now changing. And that's why we're seeing that shift in body composition. And we really want to focus on that lean muscle mass and then, losing that body fat percentage. Bodies change. It's the body will change.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's frustrating, but I always say it's not your fault. You've done nothing wrong. And I really think it's important for women to understand that, because then we want to revert to those. For some, potentially it can trigger an eating disorder, especially an older eating disorder. And I always want to say, you have done nothing wrong, but we need to approach this differently now.
Yeah. I don't think I did anything wrong. It's just a little shocking. Like, wait, I'm eating the
Mm-hmm.
same, I work out the
Mm-hmm.
same, and I actually had hired a trainer, I think a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and I
Mm-hmm.
worked out with her for 6 months. And the
Mm-hmm.
first day,
Mm-hmm.
she put me on this machine where you hold on to this little
Mm-hmm.
handle thing, and you get like the fat composition, the
Oh
weight,
yeah.
muscle, whatever that thing's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then 6 months later, she goes, "Okay, we've been doing this for 6 months. Get on." And I get on. I'm like, no change.
Nothing.
I was so pissed.
I'm sure
I
you
blamed
were.
her. I was like, this was horrible. It's her fault. I wasn't lifting heavy enough weights. And this is pre-menopause for me, or peri.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was in peri, but I didn't know I
Yeah.
was. And now looking back on it, I'm like, whoa, this was all hormonal. I have
Yeah.
such low testosterone. How the hell am I supposed to gain muscle
Yeah.
if I don't have any testosterone in my body? So, yeah.
Exactly. No,
And
you're so right.
this is what we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's so frustrating for women, I think, because we aren't change. Nothing's changing. Yes, we're not getting a
Mm-hmm.
period, but
Mm-hmm.
I eat the same, I work out the
Mm-hmm.
same, and my waist is going, whoa. I'm like, what's
It's
happening?
it's not fair.
And I think it was hard being in COVID, like wearing like yoga pants all the time. And then I
Uh-huh.
go to put my pants, I'm
Your
like,
jeans on, or like pants that button. I know. It's
I
so
can't button
true.
these pants anymore. So anyway, but then how do we lose weight? Like, I know we can because
You
anybody can,
can.
but I agree with you. I've looked at like different groups, and they're like, women are pissed. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've dieted, I'm down to 800 calories a day, I'm running 10 times, all this, like
Mm-hmm.
they're doing extreme things to lose weight,
Mm-hmm.
still not coming off.
I know. I
So
know.
what do we do to lose the weight? Like, how do we
Mm-hmm.
get in shape when we're going through this?
Absolutely. So we do it multi-fact. We attack it from every angle, if you will.
Mm.
So one of the things that we're going to do is immediately, we do not count calories in like, no one wants to count calories. It's like miserable. But
Yeah.
what we do initially is we do an audit, like on your macros. Now, this isn't something that we want you to sustain forever. So I'm like, we need to have a starting point. So we're going to look at your protein, we're going to look at your fiber, and we're going to look at your carbohydrates.
Okay.
Then we're going to see how you're eating, and then we're going to make those adjustments. Then we're going to look at your thyroid. I want a full panel. So I don't just want a TSH, which is what you might
Yeah.
get. You need a full thyroid. So we want
Always
to look
get
at
the full
that.
panel.
Yeah,
And
get
and,
your
and
full
doctors don't
thyroid.
order that. Everybody,
No.
ladies,
Mm-mm.
get the full
Mm-hmm.
thyroid panel. Doctors say you don't need it. Yes, you
Yes,
do.
you do. And
You hu-
we order that for our clients in practice.
yeah,
So we will get a full thyroid panel. We're also, so I'm about to get into the nuts and bolts. Are you ready? So we will also
please.
look at the iodine, so what your iodine is doing, because a lot of us are deficient in iodine, and that supports our thyroid. So again, we're attacking it from
Mm,
multiple levels.
okay.
Another thing that we do that you may or may not have heard about is we are big into minerals. So we do a
Mhm.
HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis, on all of our clients. And because these are spark plugs for the cells, they're
Ooh,
frontline for hormone health, for digestion, for reducing fatigue, for the improvement in skin and digestion. And they support the thyroid, and they help with that stress resiliency. And a lot of
mm,
times what we'll see is if we have somebody that comes into us with that on their HTMA test or their hair test, and they have really high calcium on that test. Calcium is, we want to bring that calcium down, because that's actually what slows down your metabolism. And so we do, and it's all through food, it's all through nutrition. It's nothing like crazy fancy or anything. In fact, it's a low hanging fruit. That's why I love this test so much. So
mm,
we attack it from many different angles. And then we want to see, maybe it's time to bring in HRT. What is your exercise like? We want exercise. This is the thing with exercise. We want you to have the benefits of we want you to have the benefits of exercise without stressing the body. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is that when and a lot of our clients come to us, they're just depleted. They're exhausted. They've,
Yeah.
bounced around to different doctors. They don't know what to do anymore. And they're just absolutely exhausted. And so, but they're doing maybe, Orange Theory at 5 a.m. And then maybe they're running, couple, 5 miles after that. And it's like, no, 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 no. We are now in a metabolic resistance and adaptation, and we need to reset that metabolism. And so that is what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking like, is your physical activity supporting your body in a way that's going to promote improving our body composition? And so we're going to really get very prescriptive as far as, okay, what's your mineral status? What's thyroid? Nervous system. I mean, again, we're doing it from every angle, and our clients lose weight. In fact, our clients, and when I say lose weight, I want to emphasize, I don't care what your weight is. I want to know that you have more lean muscle mass than body fat percentage, but we still use weight as a measurement, or use your clothes. Even our clients that had no intention of losing weight lose weight. And it's because we hit it from all of these different angles. And it's just lighting that fire back in that metabolism. So metabolism, thyroid, making sure you're eating enough to keep the engine going, to keep that metabolism going, eating enough protein, making sure you're having regular bowel movements. And of course, we're going to support your mineral status. So we hit it at every single angle. And liver and digestion and gallbladder, all of that is part of it. So it's not just food and exercise.
That's so important. And not a lot of people are talking about everything that you're talking about right there. They're not doing the hair mineral test. They're not doing that test.
Yeah, we
Heavy
love
metals.
that test. I do it twice a year on myself. I mean, honestly, I could talk about minerals for like a whole hour on your show. But I cannot tell you, I mean, minerals are incredible. And even clients will say, I didn't really know what this was. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'll never not focus on my mineral stat. Like, I can't believe I've gone this long without it. So it's definitely something that, it's just sometimes the missing link. Sometimes it's the minerals, sometimes it's the HRT, sometimes we're not exercising correctly. I mean, we're all so different. So it just depends, but weight loss is absolutely possible if we've done it right. And what I don't want is our clients just burning the candle at both ends. Like, you don't have to be on 500 calories and exercising constantly. It doesn't have to be that way. We're done dieting like that. Those days are
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. And I think that women that do that, they're still not losing weight.
No, they're not successful.
I noticed that I just recently, just by chance, cut back on some carbs. I'm like, oh, there's a little difference here. And I don't eat a
Yeah.
lot of carbs anyway, but I was like, wow. There's a lot with blood sugar that, again, I don't
Oh.
think a lot of people have talked about with menopause, which we're all affected by blood sugar and insulin resistance. So can you just
Oh,
explain, what
yes.
does that mean? We hear that term all the time. What does insulin resistance mean?
Absolutely. I'm glad you said that. So, we'll do just like a little quick science example. So when we eat food, doesn't matter if it's a handful of Skittles or if you ate, a really nice protein rich meal, your body is going to break it down into its simplest form, which is glucose, because that's what our body absorbs into the bloodstream, and it gets into our cells. And in order to get into our cells, to your cardiac cell, skeletal cell, brain cell, it needs insulin. And insulin is the key that unlocks the door to get that glucose into the cell. And what happens is, some of it can be just eating, too much of the wrong types of food for that person. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, Michelle, you and I could eat a banana and I might process it completely different than you do. You may be fine with the banana, I may not be. So what happens in time is insulin keeps saying, okay, this person, we just ate a meal, we're going to have a surge in our blood sugar. Now we're going to have this insulin come in and bring it down so it can go into the cells. Well, sometimes what happens in these perimenopausal years, because of the hormone shifts, your body starts ignoring that insulin. But then your body's signaling, it's a biofeedback loop, but the glucose, they're like, we're low in blood sugar, so we want to keep producing more insulin. We're going to keep producing. So all of a sudden, it's just this flood of insulin that keeps coming in. And then now we're at a point where our cells are no longer listening to insulin. They're ignoring it. And that's where that resistance to insulin, it's just completely ignoring insulin. And so then what happens is we get this high blood sugar. And when that's what sets us up. Honestly, that is where we want to make sure that we're very efficient at that energy exchange. So we're getting glucose into the cells, insulin's coming in, but then it's dropping and it's not staying high. So something else that we want to look at is what's your insulin level? So we will tell our clients to get a fasting insulin, because your blood sugars could be okay, but that insulin may still be high. And then
Yeah.
we want to look at how we can manipulate that through diet, lifestyle. Sometimes supplements need to be brought in. And actually minerals help with that insulin resistance too, which is why we get success with it. So that is what insulin resistance is. And again, you could be doing nothing wrong and that insulin resistance because of that hormone change. But I will say this, building muscle is like money in the bank. The
Yep.
more muscle mass you have, the less chances of that insulin resistance, the better you control your blood sugar. And see, the thing with insulin, we need insulin to survive. We cannot survive it with it, but it's the Goldilocks amount. And when our insulin is too high, it's pro-inflammatory. It actually affects our cholesterol levels, and it promotes weight gain, particularly around the middle. So that is where we really see that. And that's why you have to really hit that hard. So we don't mess around with that in practice. When I see high levels like that, we see high blood sugar, high fasting insulin, high inflammatory markers, we're going to just go right. We're going to cut the head off at the snake immediately.
Which is, we've got to get to the gym or at home. It doesn't matter, but we've got
Yeah.
to be lifting big weights. I mean, if I read that again, like I read
I
it all
know.
the time,
I
throw the pink, we got to throw
know.
the pink and purple 2-pound weights away. They don't do
Oh
anything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
We're talking
I had
20,
those.
30 pounds, all of that. I did too. I did
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I have the pink weights, but I also had to go out and buy the 20-pound weights. I was like, well, for God's sake, these are heavy now, but I have those at home, but I'm also
Yep.
joining the gym again. But yeah, lift big, heavy weights. How many days a week should we be doing that?
Ideally 3 times. If you
Yeah.
can build up to 4, that would be great. And what we want to do is we want to have, we actually, we did a post last week that was called Do the Damn Cardio, because I think women are now like scared to do cardio. And we were having clients coming to us that were saying, I loved running. It really spoke to me. And I was like, let's get all of this organized, your adrenals, your thyroid, get everything good, get you in a nice routine with your weights. And then we can throw in the cardio if it makes you feel good, if it feeds your soul, if like we don't need to remove all of that. But ideally, you're lifting heavy 3 times and you want to do that progressive overload is really what it's about. You want to
Yeah.
see that you're increasing your weight as you go. And I started lifting weights about 5 years ago and I love it. I can't believe how much I love it. I honestly can't believe how much I love it.
I love lifting weights too. I was so mad at my trainer a couple of years ago. I left. This doesn't do anything. It's like, no, your
I
testosterone's in the gutter,
know,
honey.
but yeah.
Yeah, that only hurt me in the end, honestly. It's interesting. I had Mark Sisson, you know who that is
Yes,
on
I
the,
do.
oh,
Yes.
he was on the podcast. I recorded him the other day,
Uh-huh.
and he's, one of the greatest runners in the world. I mean, he
Uh-huh.
talks about all the running and he has a shoe company,
Mhm.
all the things. But anyway, we got to talking about running. He has a new book out called Born to Walk.
Okay.
He actually poo-pooed running. He said it so raises cortisol. He goes, and you women with your menopause, he's going on. I was
Ah,
like, he goes, the cortisol. He goes, the
yeah.
cortisol release from this heavy, extreme cardio is hurting us. He says, walk. He goes, just get out and walk. I go, I walk every
Yeah.
day. I'm walking. That's one thing
I
I do.
yeah,
But
no, absolutely.
yeah,
The
when
cortisol.
when you think
Cannot
about it with the
overlook the cortisol.
cortisol and the spike in your adrenals when you're
Mm-hmm.
running or hit HIT, all of that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
it's actually could be, which is such a brain,
I
twist. Like
know.
it's making us gain weight. Like, okay, we got to rethink all of this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just a couple more questions, then we're going to shift over the
Sure.
questions in the academy. Um, what about hair loss? Like,
Mm.
good God, everyone in their 40s and then some. Why is my hair so thin? What's going on with my hair loss? What's the cause of that?
Low progesterone. So
Okay.
it's progesterone really supports that great, beautiful, flowy hair that we have. And unfortunately, some women will experience more hair loss than others. And
Yeah.
so progesterone, so we do it multifactorial. We do it a couple different, so also thyroid. So in our practice, we're gonna make sure we've got thyroid humming along. It's doing what it needs
Yep.
to do. We're gonna make sure that progesterone is on board because sometimes that's what we need. We might just need to bring in progesterone. And then we're also gonna make sure that your minerals are where they need to be. So we're going to support, we're going to replete your mineral status. We're going to recommend progesterone. And some of our women, a topical progesterone can be enough. Sometimes we need to layer in oral and topical. And then
Yeah.
of course we want to make sure thyroid is doing what it's doing. But yeah, hair loss and hair thinning are definitely a symptom in the perimenopause and menopausal years, and it's the progesterone. And so we got to do it at many different angles. And I do think that if, you know, HRT works almost better as prevention than treatment in some ways. And so sometimes if we can get ahead of the hair loss, it may not be as bad as it would have been in the menopausal years if you waited a little bit longer. But yeah, unfortunately, hair loss is one of those symptoms that's just so unbelievably frustrating. Hair loss, weight gain. I
I
mean,
know.
let's go
It's
on
like,
and on.
what the
I
hell is
don't
going
know.
on?
I
Like,
don't know.
come on, man. Like, this is crazy.
I know.
Um, and then does your hair grow back once you start the progesterone and okay. I just want
Yes,
all the women to hear that because I have women talk to me about that all
it
the
can
time.
happen. It can
So
absolutely happen.
what about the women that were the women that were in their early 50s or late 40s
Mhm.
in 2002 when this
Mhm.
incorrect study came out and took all the hormones off the market that are now 60,
I
65 and
know.
older? They're asking the same questions like, well, what about me? Am I beyond? Can I go on hormones now? So what do you say to them?
We, right now, you'd be pressed to find a doctor that will prescribe that. I'll be
Yeah.
honest. The data right now is showing that you have about 10 years post menopause. So that when you've gone past that 12-month mark of not having a cycle,
Hmm.
right now, I think the safe zone is 10 years. You're probably going to want doctors that may not be comfortable past 5. There are a few doctors out there, and I would be curious about Dr. Mary Claire Haver, her input on this. I have
Yeah.
had a few doctors that are, you know, more in that functional medicine space that will prescribe HRT to women in their 60s and 70s, but you're going to have a very hard time finding a doctor just because right now they're saying that it's not safe. And I don't know if we, again, have enough research. Remember, women
This
weren't
is,
included in studies until, remember, or maybe you don't know this, but women were not included in studies until 1993. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. So we
I
just
don't,
don't have the data. The thoughts are around it is that, let's say, I'll give the example of cardiovascular health for just a minute. So cardiovascular health risk for women increases after that menopause because estrogen keeps us kind of flexible. And you want to think about in your arteries as well. It keeps it flexible, keeps things flowing. And when we don't have estrogen for 10, 12 plus years, they've gotten very stiff. And the fear is
mm,
that by adding estrogen, it could, they don't know, but they think something could change structurally. And I think there's just a fear around that. Do I think, you know, I'm a dietitian, so obviously I can't prescribe, but I think that they need to do their research as much as they can, start interviewing other doctors and see what is available out there and see if you do find a doctor, see how many of them have prescribed HRT for the first time in women that are in their 60s and 70s.
yeah. The doctor that I found on Mary Claire Haver's site
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to now for
Mm-hmm.
hormones, I asked her that same question and she said the same
Yeah.
exact thing as you. And she said,
Yeah.
she goes, anyone that is in their 60s, like come and or has been menopausal for 10 years. She says, I would always do a blood test. She goes, I won't say no. I would do a blood test though, just to see what we find and see if it's
Mm-hmm.
worthwhile. So, all right. All right. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I have all my questions answered. You mentioned this person, some people I posted about you on Instagram and some
Uh-huh.
people ask questions, but I get extreme brain fog and
Mm-hmm.
feel but weird, which you said, yeah. and
Yeah.
and exacerbates my anxiety. What's the most effective way to management and stay sharp so I feel like my best self?
I'm gonna say this, with the brain fog, absolutely, replete your minerals. In fact, I'll provide a very basic mineral cocktail that you can start with without having like the exact data. It's so simple. When I say this, you're like, what is this? 8 to 10 ounces of coconut water, a pinch of sea salt, and a half a squeeze of lime. Very
Great.
simple. That's a basic mineral cocktail you can start with right now. Um, so that can help a little bit with getting the spark. Like I said, minerals are the spark plugs for the cells.
Yeah.
You some of us think, and this is if we haven't brought in HRT, you have to think of your brain going through a recalibration, which is why the brain fog sets in, is because your brains are now thinking, I'm used to estrogen, I'm used to progesterone, and it's kind of going through a crisis. And so there may be a little bit of this recalibration where it's trying to function without those hormones. So start exploring HRT if you haven't, do the minerals and balance those blood sugars, because that's also going to help with the brain fog. Having that, think about your blood sugar is energy.
Yeah.
And it's an energy exchange in and out of the cells. So that's another thing that you would want to look at.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, gosh, everyone I talk to is like, "What's wrong with my memory? Why
Yeah.
can't I remember anything? I'm getting scared. Is it Alzheimer's?" You know,
I know. And
so
that's what you don't
scary.
want. That's why I said that earlier, is that this is an inflection point in our health, because what
Yeah,
we don't want is that you may have a little bit of it right now, again, as the brain is trying to recalibrate. We don't
yeah,
want that permanently setting in. That's what we want to
right.
avoid.
Exactly. And mine is actually better since going on hormones, I have to say.
Mine
I don't
is
have.
too. I've actually noticed with the progesterone, I'm starting to see it come back again.
Me
Absolutely.
too. Like I would see, like when I lived in Nashville, I remember I would walk into a restaurant and see some of my clients that like I literally, some clients I would see every week, every other week. And I'd look at them and go, I don't have a
Yeah.
clue what their name.
Yeah.
Like it's just not available in the
No,
mind.
it's not. It's not coming back. It's not there.
Yeah. Okay. One more question here. Do you have any thoughts regarding the use of estrogen pill patch or other?
Okay. Thoughts as far as, okay. So right now, the safest delivery is going to be the estradiol patch. It has the least amount of side effects. The
Hmm.
only reason why I would see someone wanting the pill over the patch, well, there's a few. One, some people just don't want to wear something, or they
Yeah.
find it itchy, or they find that it affects their skin. Others, it's an insurance. I've had a few where it's just insurance won't pay for it, or it's just so exorbitant to do the
That's
patch, which again,
crazy.
Michelle, you and I could,
I
yeah,
can't. I
I
just
can't
cannot.
either.
Like, okay.
No way, exactly. So those could be some of the reasons. So I would absolutely recommend starting with a patch. It's going to be the safest delivery. It's going to have the least amount of risks that are like, which we get scared of, which is like blood clots. It
Yep.
bypasses the liver. So absolutely start with the patch and stay with the patch if you can. And also, I didn't talk about this. Another thing that you can do with estrogen is you can do an estrogen patch and vaginal estrogen to also help with lubrication, being comfortable, reducing urinary tract infections, all sorts of things that, we want to keep our vaginas healthy. I mean,
Really.
there's no reason not to focus on that. So you can also do those as a combination, but always start with the patch first.
One last question, then we're shifting over to the live
Sure.
Q&A. Last question is, what about a test for us? Like, what do you recommend if you are 50? Like,
Mhm.
I used to take the Dutch test twice a year, but is there the best test that we can take to see where our hormones are, or is it a blood test, or what is it?
It's right now we're moving away from that. So we used to run a Dutch test in our practice. When I'll give you some scenarios, I know I'm kind of like giving you the answer as it depends. And
Right.
so it depends really. If we have a woman that has come to us and has maybe a history or has PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, we'll probably do a Dutch test because I want to look at the androgen levels. We want to look at different things.
Right.
If we have a woman that's coming to us with no, endometriosis, PCOS, we're really just going to go by symptoms, and then we're going to monitor those symptoms. Now,
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
is pre-HRT.
Right.
Once HRT is on board, I do think there's value in doing a Dutch test and blood work, because we want to make sure that those levels are where we want them to be. Having said that, symptoms are one of the best ways to go. Just because you may see the Dutch test say progesterone is low, I'm just using that as an example, but you
Yeah.
feel really good, then we just need to stay there. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
for
need
sure.
to increase progesterone just because the Dutch test said X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So always go by your symptoms. Always pair your symptoms with that blood work. You got to have both of them.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, my darling, where would people
Yes.
find you if they want to learn more? I know you are a women's hormone dietitian, so tell
Yes.
us. I know you
Yes.
do a lot of things. So where would people find you if
Yes.
they want to?
So
Because people can work with you all over. You
oh
don't have
yeah,
to live
we're a
in
virtual
Georgia, right?
practice. We
Perfect.
work with women all over the country. And so we fill the gaps, honestly, where providers can't. So that's really sort of where we help. And then we help strategize. But you can find us on Instagram at perfectly portioned wellness _. And of course, I'll provide that for you. You can have that in the show notes if you
Okay.
need. I also am encouraging you to sign up for our podcast, Sex, Drugs, and Menopause, which is going to be on our Instagram page. And it's also going to have its own IG account here very soon.
Okay.
And you can also just find us at perfectlyportionedwellness.com. You can just go straight to our website and sign up for our newsletter there. We are very intentional about our newsletter because we know that for you to give us your email address, we understand the value in that, and time is one of your greatest assets. And so we
Yes.
make our newsletters quick, actionable. They're a 5-minute read, and we want to make them to where it's really not gonna, you're not gonna be reading books, and we want to make sure that you we just value your time, and we're just grateful for that. So those are the different ways that you can find us. And once you get to the website, you can figure out how to apply to work with us, and if you're interested in anything. And you can also just email us at info@perfectlyportionedwellness.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being here today. We
Yes,
appreciate you.
absolutely.